Good day. I'm Carlisle Douglas of CTVIEW Multimedia. Now, I've taken on the passion of national reconciliation. National reconciliation to me is important because we are Vincentians. I had Dr. Friday on the program on Saturday, and one of the things that I would have mentioned to him in the interview is that due to COVID-19 and the restrictions it brings on tourism and the unemployment situation in the United States, I am anticipating things to be very rough here for us in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And therefore, the lines at the Western Union and MoneyGram, plus the tourism money, are going to be a thing of the past. It's going to be, seriously diminished. But it is important also for us to understand that we are all Vincentians and we're in this together. That I mentioned that, having traveled, to America, sometimes, there's a car passing. Sometimes people that you run into on the outside, that you and them might have had some kind of little beef here or whatever, that beef disappears when you run into somebody that you know. And I think it's a practical thing for us to come together as Vincentians, despite our political differences. Before reaching out to Dr. Friday, I reached out to our Prime Minister. I would have called the number that was given to me by Dr. Gerald Thompson and Lennox Bowman, and didn't get a response. I also sent a message on his Instagram page. Today, my intention, the truck is passing. My intention today is to write a letter and have it hand delivered to the Prime Minister's office, officially. And we can go from there. Like I said, national reconciliation is important. And it seems to me that St. Vincent is seriously divided, and this is especially evident in the last elections result. Wherein that the issues go unresolved because people are of one party or another, and it's my feeble attempt as a concerned Vincentians to make this better. So here's the interview with Dr. Friday, and I'm reaching out to the general public, anybody who sees this video. If you have any ideas what it would take to facilitate national reconciliation, you can contact me. Contact me via WhatsApp, 491-9140. Email carlisle@gmail.com or production.CTVIEW @gmail.com. Dr. Friday. Nice radio. Good morning, Delight.
Hello, good morning, Carlisle.
Hey, Doc, how are you, sir?
Well, I see that you had so many guests on this show. You're obviously a popular morning program, but thank you for.
I think it's because they heard you come and they say, "Well, okay, yeah, Carlisle is good company, so let me fit in now."
All right.
No,
well,
I'm just teasing.
Thank you for inviting me and for dear listeners, just want to say good morning to everyone.
Yes.
And again, to say thank you to the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines for coming out and supporting the Democratic Party in the last election. Mm-hmm. We know, and I've heard, as many of your callers have been suggesting and have intimated that, things as usual with this this government, this electoral system that we have, mm-hmm. are not always the way that they intended to go.
Yes.
And of course, we are in the New Democratic Party. We will continue to represent the views that we put forward and that the people in the country accepted as the majority view. You can't get away from that.
All right.
We have presented to the people a campaign that was positive, that was talking about jobs and growth and development and opportunities for people. And the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, a majority of the people, mm-hmm. accepted and embraced that vision that we presented. That is something that I am immensely proud of, that the campaign that was conducted and the way in which the people responded, especially the young people. Yes. And they're the ones who are looking for a future with hope, with a difference, with opportunities for themselves, but also, looking for a country that is better than we have now. Not just simply somebody who comes and says and does anything in order to win an election, and then they continue to try to bamboozle people, to pretend as though what they say in the election doesn't matter afterwards, and to reject the legitimate demands of the people. Right now, what we have in St. Vincent and the Grenadines is a minority government. There is no other way that you can describe it, because they did not win a majority. As I said in my address to the nation following the election, it's a difficult situation for not just for the NDP supporters, but for the country. Because we have an unstable situation where you have a government that, by the first past the post system, under our constitution, they have been declared the government of the country. But a fundamental principle of democracy, and one that we always highlight as the paramount principle of democracy, is that the majority determines who forms government. Sometimes it doesn't happen in our system, but that is not the way it was intended to function. The intention is always, if we are in a democratic system, that you will have a majority of the people determining who the government is, and then the government has legitimacy because it has the majority of the people supporting it. We don't have that in St. Vincent, and there's no other way to
But you see, the ones that are arguing against you, I remember last election, and looking at the Donald Trump situation, I think I would have made the statement after this one.
In the U.S.?
Yes, the Donald Trump situation, along with our 2015 elections, would have told me that Donald Trump would have sworn himself in 5 years ago, if he was in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And I made that comment. Because where the rush of the swearing in 5 years ago, and compare it to now, compare it to what was said then, because they had the majority of the votes, and what is being said now. When they had the popular vote last election, and the Central Leeward and North Windward was questioned. That was part of their legitimacy of saying, well, this is why we should be. But I don't know. Now the shoe is on the other foot, and it's another story. But Dr. Friday, the reason I really asked you to come on this program is I was moved by an article on the front page of the news last week. Well, actually, even before the news came out, I woke up early one morning and I said, what we're going to need here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines is we're going to have to find a way for us to get together. Like, there's people in Liu, where I live, that support, the Unity Labour Party. And it's almost like a taunting where, they're looking for a reaction where, as a matter of fact, I think there was a couple of fights that broke out during the election. And I am anticipating that, as things get harder, people say when the U.S. sneezes, St. Vincent catches a cold down the road. But this week in the U.S., there is 1 million persons who are filing for unemployment benefits. That's 1 million, 1 million additional persons. Yes, and also there's a quarter million persons that died from COVID. Now that economic spin-off is already hitting down here.
Yes.
Where in that most Saturday mornings when I pass, I pay close observations to the lines under the post office, and also the ones at on Bay Street next to Corey's. I think there's a Western Union there, and there's a MoneyGram, respectively. Yes, and those lines are diminished. Those lines are diminished, and therefore, I anticipate with the COVID-19 and the tourism dollar drying up, there are going to be desperate times ahead.
Yes.
And the desperate times ahead, what we're going to need most of all is each other. What we're gonna need most of all is each other. I even made a joke about it this morning. I mean, it's sometimes it seems funny, like somebody that you would have went to school with and would have had a personal problem with them, but then you run into them on the outside in Trinidad or the United States, and that is forgotten, and you're best of friends.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that has to come back in effort to cushion the blow.
Well, it has to be, Carlisle.
Mm-hmm.
I keep telling people that politics matters, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You can't simply disregard it and say, well, this is not for me, or I'm not interested, and so on. It matters because it affects your life.
Mm-hmm.
The way in which we govern, is a result of who is in power.
Mm-hmm.
And there are those who, it is not something that is made up. It has been a consistent approach from this Unity Labour Party government. Over the years they've been in power,
Mm-hmm.
where they have basically sought to divide and rule. That has been their modus operandus. You look after the people who you feel are your base, who put you in office,
Mm-hmm.
and you essentially disregard the others. I mean, they had many phrases that they used for it, own the jobs, own this and own that,
Yes.
and all that sort of stuff. And they, in practice, there are people working, just cutting bush by the side of the road and so on, and a minister would pass and send a message and say, listen, this person is not NDP, is not ULP, get rid of them. These are not made-up stories. These are things we know.
Yes.
And the victimization that we have had under this government over the years is real. And so you can't ask people to simply disregard that, because their bread and butter has been taken away. And we can talk about how we are going to go forward, and I have always, called for us to act as though we are one people.
Yes, and
that has been, especially during the COVID crisis.
Mm-hmm.
We have made many overtures and approaches to government and said, listen, this is a crisis of unimaginable magnitude. We have not experienced anything like this. Let's come together. In St. Lucia, they're doing it, for God's sake.
Mm-hmm.
But here, no, we have to be, that I am the boss, we have the power, and therefore nobody else matters. And so when that is is coming from the top, then it makes it very difficult for people to sort of look and see, well, there is a future. In my address that I gave to the nation following the election, I spoke about that because the Governor General had in her remarks said that she wants to see, basically, she'll be there for everybody, and that there should be inclusiveness. But in the very remarks that Gonzalez made on that day, signify that he had no intention to change his ways. I suppose they say a leopard can't change its spots. But we continue to be a party of inclusiveness. We have said this, and this is why we have the majority vote now, because people begin to say, well, listen, this is a political leader, this is a political party that wants to look after all of the people of St. Vincent and Grenadines, and have a vision that will include all of the people doing their part and also benefiting from the resources of the country.
Yes.
And so if that is the party that is going to be holding that out, then we will support them. And this is what has happened and will continue to happen, because we are not going to change that message, because it is one that brings the country together. It's one that helps to develop the country, and then everybody benefits from the resources of the country. That is what we want to do. And so we will continue to press for that. But at the same time, the people are really finding it difficult. You alluded to that as well.
Yes.
That the lines, that the remittances line, they call them that, important. And people are finding it difficult. I see it in my office all the time, Carla. I mean, this is just part of what, as a political leader, that's what I experience, I see it. But the level, when I hear somebody comes to me and says that her daughter, who is in, grade 6, who's preparing for CSEC, not CSEC, for common entrance, what they call the new name, CTVIEW, can't go to school because there's no food for her or him in the morning.
Or there's no bus fare, and you see that is a common thing in St. Vincent.
You know how desperate that is, because no parent wants to keep their child home, especially when they're preparing for an important exam like that. So we have to. I agree with you. We have to reach out and to help one another. Never mind, what the political rhetoric might be. And this has been always, Eustace has been inclusive and in his leadership of the Democratic Party, and has broadened the tent. I've done similarly. I've done, gone out and met people and asked them to give us their support so that we can transform this country in a way that benefits everybody. And that's the message we will continue. And we will do it by going to the people more and more, because that is what people want. They want to know that you understand their circumstances. Not just that somebody can come in the election and put up all kinds of lies and gin up fear among the people. I mean, gee whiz, I mean, the kind of campaign that you hear, you think that this is very sad for a small country like St. Vincent and the Grenadines that you hear coming out from the other side. And they will say, well, we're in government, but you're in government with a minority. That means that the majority of the people did not subscribe to that message.
Subscribe to that message.
That's
No,
right.
no, Dr. Friday.
And I want to just say something else, I heard Gonzalez suggesting that somehow that a majority or a minority doesn't matter if you have a majority on the mainland. I want to know what he means by that. That if you have a majority in the mainland, that's all that matters. Grenadines simply is not part of the country. This has been part of the campaign and the rhetoric they've had, that somehow, if you come from Connery, you can become Prime Minister. If you come from Beckway, you can't become Prime Minister.
No, it's almost like they want to split like Haiti and the Dominican Republic, because it's funny, if you look at the, I made a graphic of the constituencies, and I try to call them red and yellow. I try to color the graphic red and yellow according to the proportion of the wind. And what presents itself to me is that St. Vincent is red and yellow. And here's what I'm seeing, is that with our economy, and especially we're going to take the dip in tourism. We're about to take a dip in tourism, which means less of a cake to be eaten, and with the money coming in, that's less as well. But the way I see the job situation, there's not enough jobs for everybody, and therefore it's the persons who are supporting the party that get the jobs. And the ones who get the jobs because they're supporting the party don't necessarily think about doing a good job.
Yeah.
Those are the ones who go to work late every day and
Correct.
leave early, and you can't say anything to them
No, Carla,
because they're politically appointed.
and you know what the ULP have been, what they were doing in the last election? They may not have said it outright on the platform, but I got so many calls from public servants, from people who have been in touch with public servants. They were spreading the word among the public servants that because they get their jobs, because they're related to some politician or somebody high up in government, that Friday and NDP will take away the job.
Well, that was the conviction of a lady in Leyu.
Yes.
But I would have made the comment that I would have gone. She works at the petroglyphs. I would have gone to the petroglyphs one time and spent 3 hours and there was nobody there. So and it only feeds my impression of the same job situation. Basically, you would see it especially at the hospital, because my mother worked at the hospital, so I would know what is usually done there, where a maid or a nurse and attendant, will tell the ward sister she's not doing that. I mean, these are things that I've witnessed. I've witnessed personally, going to the post office and seeing young people with headphones in their ears, and they're just sitting there, and
well, it's a management
people need to be helped.
As I told people, when we were doing the campaign, it's not my intention. I campaign on creating jobs. What I want to do is to grow the economy, and I will continue to push that because people in the country embrace that vision. So we will continue to push for that. And so those persons who obtain their jobs in the public service, I am saying that what matters is how you perform, not how you got your job.
I see.
That's what I'm concerned about, and I hope that is the right decision that will be taken going forward.
I think they were the impression that these jobs are so scarce that
on you. It's not just the salary you take home at the end of the week.
Yes.
People are depending on you to do your job. So you do your job, and everything is fine because you're producing, you're creating added value for the public service, and you're serving your country.
Okay.
That is what I subscribe to then during the campaign, and subscribe to now because I believe it's good for our country.
All right. Well, you did tell me that you didn't have much time, but before you leave, I want you to address this for me.
I'm here for about another half an hour.
If you were Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, what would you do to bring the nation together? What would you start with in having this most difficult job, I would want to say, of bringing the nation together?
Carla, you have to convey. You can't just say things and people see you doing something else. That is what I hope people recognize in me. When I say something, is because I mean it and I will do it. And if I can't do it, I will tell you why. Maybe there is some, obstacle that prevents it from happening. But the point is to trust that you will be looking out for the interests of the people as a whole. I think that's why people came towards us in the New Democratic Party, because they saw in me as the leader of the party and in the program that we put forward one of inclusiveness. So the two things have to go together, the rhetoric and the practice. What we have had in the present administration, the present government for over the years, is they've had the rhetoric in many instances. You hear them talk about together now and they're doing this. But the practice has not been that. So people have grown cynical. And so what I would do is, of course, you have to have the messaging and then to have the practice that is consistent with that, to ensure that people understand that once you have voted, you voted as a Vincentian. You don't owe anybody your vote. You can vote for whomever you choose. And so I am happy that people, having chosen, voted in majority for the NDP. So once you do that, you say this is how you're going to govern, and then you set about to do it. People realize, well, listen, this is different. This is how government should work. This is how I want our country to function. You be effective. You do what your job says that you should do in the public service. And for those in the private sector, when they interact with government, they are treated equally, irrespective of your political affiliation. Because we can't go forward where you just basically singling out people and asking, who it is, to find out who the person is before you can decide whether the policies and the programs of government should benefit that person or that company. If you do that, then you're holding everybody back, because that company could employ 2 or 3 people. 5 or 6 people. But you are going to, we know Bigger Bigs as the classic example of that you don't support the government and you die. When you do that, you are basically creating a situation of joblessness, which we have now in the country. And they have no answer for it. They have absolutely no answer for it. And they're going to come, and all they want to do is borrow more money and tax people higher so that government survives, but everybody else suffers. That is what we have in store for us going forward. And we are going to resist that because that is what the people have asked us to do. Our approach has been to create to provide tax relief to the people, to bring in more foreign direct investment through various means so that we don't have to borrow everything. The government doesn't have to borrow all the time and create a debt of $1.7 billion and then turn around and tax the people to pay for it. That is where we are now. That's the cycle that we are in. And so, they talk and all the grand promises and so on. They've never been able to fulfill them, and they will not be able to now because they do not have the capital inflows to bring about the programs that they want to do.
Yeah, because all of a sudden the stadium is the track in Diamond that is off the radar. You don't hear any more.
No, because now
talk
you see
about
they
that.
put down the carpet and people go out there and running it, and the circle isn't fine. Let's see what condition it's in a year from now.
Yeah.
Because it was done cheaply, hurriedly, for a political reason, not to help athletes, but to help the people in the ULP get elected. To say, listen, we delivered.
Basically for the look of it. I mean, it's the same thing. It's the same critique I had of the airport, where in that me knowing the weather in Argyle, I would have predicted that the Airbus, the stuff that they purchased to get people walking off the airplane to get into the airport as opposed to walking onto sunshine.
Big waste of money.
And from what I understand, it's not working.
Well, big, stupid waste of money.
Big, stupid, and those things were something. Those were millions of US dollars each.
Over $2 million.
Yes.
Barbados, which has, flights coming Virgin and Atlantic. You have BA. You have
and the Bahamas.
walk across the tarmac.
Yes.
And the idiots who spent the money on that, they say, oh, it rains here, so therefore it doesn't rain in Barbados. I mean, come on. But it's just that that's just another way for them to waste public resources, and it's there not functioning. Because you don't have the flights to bring. Most of the flights are going to come to St. Vincent for the foreseeable future are going to be small planes like it used to be. And they don't use that. And it's all foolishness. And they get up and they do the grand talk and so on, and some people buy it. But most of the people are realizing that what these guys are doing is just all talk, no substance to it, because unemployment is over 36% in this country now. For young people, it's going to be over 50. It's over 50%. Poverty is growing in the country. You have a government here that does not have majority support and does not have the money to do any of the programs that they said that they would do. We've seen this in the past. There's no reason to think it's going to be different now because they have no revenue stream. Deal with it.
The only revenue stream I'm anticipating that something might come out of from the Securities Council. I mean, if we are to do some.
The only thing the Security Council does for us is we spend more money.
Well, I don't know if we do some influence peddling there, but then again, it leaves us vulnerable. It leaves us vulnerable, and whatever influence peddling there is a reflection on all of us as a nation.
Well, then you can't assume benefit. You have to prove benefit.
I hear you.
And what it is now is they're saying, okay, we are out there on the stage with the smallest country ever. It's historic and all of that stuff. No, but ultimately, when it's done and all of that shine has worn off, people are asking, well, where's the benefit to us? How is that going to create jobs in St. Vincent? How is that going to create opportunities for our businesses to expand? How are you going to use that platform rather than going out and making grand statements and standing up to say that you're here with the big boys and you're talking, in all this flowery language about the problems that confront the world? How are you going to use that platform instead, as you have intimated, to create, to leverage it to create economic opportunities for us in St. Vincent, to make our profile more well-known, to make our country.
And I noticed you said our profile, not the world boss profile. Our profile.
That's for him.
Yes.
We're talking about the country. That's my focus is on the country.
Yes.
Not about myself getting some big stage to stand up upon. I can do without that. The point is, what do we do to benefit the people of this country? We are finding it difficult. People are struggling. The hotels that you've just said, they are not going to be opening for any time soon until we can get flights coming in here, hopefully by the middle of next year, when the vaccine has taken hold in the United States, so that those persons who will travel will have been vaccinated. And those are good signs for us. But in the meantime, right now, people who are struggling here now will continue to struggle because the government has no plan, no program, nothing to benefit them. They are now back in office. You'll see all the potholes now will be reopened. None of the painting is going to be going on. You go back to politics as usual, which is ignore the people, and then come with the goodies again when there's time for election.
And then there's there's talk of political spite, especially with the street vendors. I understand that street vendors are removed from the sidewalk based on political coloration.
Well, that doesn't surprise me.
Most of them, beyond that, most of them is going to be off the street at the end of December.
We will stand with the vendors, because people have to make a living. Okay, I understand. I agree that the situation that they have allowed to develop in Kingstown, where it's completely chaotic, that is something that they created for their own political benefit, And now that the people are really struggling, they are just pushing them aside as though their interest doesn't matter. And that is wrong. We have to first and foremost understand the circumstances in which these people find themselves. Why are they? You think people want to come out on the street and stand next to somebody at the end of the day when they have $20 to show for it? They value their time too. I talk to them in the street all the time. That's what I do when I walk around Kingstown. I support them as much as I can, but I talk to them because I want to know what are the circumstances. Not just what they do on the day, but their families, Some of them have grandchildren they're looking after, and they can't find the money to send them to school. And you can just say because now you don't have to go to get votes, you can push them off and put them in a box and put them somewhere where their interest is totally disregarded. That won't happen.
All right.
And with those people.
Dr. Fry, we have a few questions online. It says, of the 39 votes that were rejected in North Leeward, who had the most? And if they do another count, will Patel win by 1 vote, or what should he do?
Well, the North Leeward, we demanded a recount in any reasonable circumstance. You have on the final count that they had Carlos James up by 7 votes. By the end of the recount, of the final count, he had a 1 vote majority. 1 single vote. The persons who were there doing the final count for us, for Patel, was a very strong team of persons. And they demanded, as the circumstances required, that there be a recount. You can't simply have a 1 vote majority and say that is not on its face sufficient reason to permit a recount. My understanding is that the returning officer said that they had gone through the vote count already, and that he has to answer to somebody higher, and that person has to answer to somebody higher. I don't know who they have to answer to. But the point is that under the circumstances where you have 1 vote, you must have a recount. Any reasonable. What are you afraid of? As a returning officer, you should not be afraid of anything. The only thing that you should be afraid of is if you missed something during that count and you're declaring somebody the winner by 1 vote. So, if that is the fear that drives you, then you should have a recount. You shouldn't be thinking about if the recount is done that you may have a situation maybe where somebody else may come out, that Patel may get another vote or 2 or may win. That can't be what drives you.
And the difference of one vote, I mean, that should be enough to establish some kind of reasonable doubt where but somebody could have made a mistake.
In any functioning democracy, that is a basis for an automatic recount. I don't know why the returning officer felt that in those circumstances it was unreasonable, because that's what the law says. That it was unreasonable to grant a recount. How could it be unreasonable if you start from 7 for Carlos, you're down to 1, and you say, well, okay, let's do a recount and make sure that this one is really where it's at.
Yes.
And you will say no. In fact, you will then go uncertified without even properly informing Patel, as the law requires in writing, as to what the count is. I mean, these are things that are, show that the electoral system, as we've been complaining,
you might have been competing against them as well.
It is not a level playing field by any means. And and that is why you will find in the polling stations that you have so many of the officers all over the country are ULP supporters, and not just supporters. Some of them are ULP hacks who are there as presiding officers and returning officers in the various constituencies. How could they, when the push comes to shove, when they have to make a judgment using their discretion, where will that ever be exercised in favor of the New Democratic Party or any other political party when they are appointed essentially because of their affiliation to when they are appointed in the majority where their affiliation is to the ULP?
All right, somebody else on WhatsApp is saying, Brother Carlisle, Dr. Friday, good morning. Carlisle, the answer to your question is jobs, jobs, jobs. In my opinion, this is what will bring the people together. Jobs brings independence. Independence brings togetherness. That's from a London listener. Okay, and...
but that is what they were afraid of, that, and, that's what the people embraced, but they were afraid of it because it creates independence in people. As I said to people in the campaign, when I talk to them, when I go, even now, I say, listen, when I come to visit you in your village or whatever, it's so much better if you could come and say, Friday, come and let me go have a drink, rather than me saying, you come in and asking me for a drink, because then it shows your independence. You are telling me that if I support you, I'm supporting you because I like what you're doing, not because you're going to give me a beer or buy me a drink or pay money in an envelope so that I could vote for you. That is not how our democracy functions, and too much of that happened during the last election.
All right, one more question, and then I'll go back to the internet. One of the comments that I heard during the election from somebody says, how could one be in power and lose the election? How could one be in government and lose the election? What would you say to somebody like that?
Well, what I say is what I said at the outset. It means that we have a minority government, which is possible under our system, but it's not the intention to create a government of that sort.
Well, I think what the person, sorry to interrupt you, but I think what the person was instigating that it will be foolish for the government not to cheat. It will be foolish for the government not to win by any means necessary.
Oh well, I didn't get that from the question.
But that's what I got from what he was saying to me.
That's what it means. Then cheating is never winning. Cheating is cheating. You can't cheat and win. Cheating is cheating, and what we have here is a government that came into office by using the massive resources of the state in a way to influence people's votes, and also using other means, other resources to influence the way people vote, to get people to vote and support them. And this is something that is pernicious. It is damaging to our democracy, because there is no limit as to then what it requires to run a political campaign or to win government in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. If it's just a matter of how much you can afford to give somebody, then what is the limit? And is that really where we want to go? Some people have said that if they were in government they couldn't lose.
that they could never lose government because they will always find a means to do it. But the point is that the people have to also realize that they're the ones who are in charge. And they have come to this realization. This is why a majority of them voted for us. It didn't turn out in the one constituency by one vote, and you had a compliant returning officer who would not permit a recount. And there are a number of ballots there that objections were made in favor of Patel that were ruled against him that, that could have been ruled the other way if the discretion were exercised in that manner. But this is something that we have to, as a people, say no longer. We can't have a situation where you have a government involved for 20 years. They know which levers to pull and what to press, and they know that they are, not that they are there, but they are capable of using them, but that they will use them. And that is a problem that we have for our democracy. And the same challenges you have in countries elsewhere that you see, and in the United States, they're talking about this as a fundamental matter in the elections there. And we have to also consider this to be fundamental to our own happiness and prosperity going forward, because you can't have a situation where the government fails to function, the economy doesn't grow, poverty is growing, you have people swing towards the New Democratic Party with our positive vision, and still the government is in office. But more than that, they hang on to an extra seat by one vote, and a returning officer refuses to permit a recount. What was he afraid of? That's the question I have to ask. The situation transparently called for a recount. What was he afraid of? That's the question.
Wow, and when Major Lee Cock was here, Major Lee Cock stopped in this morning. I don't know if you were listening, but what I was speaking to Bigger Biggs at the time, and I think it's on us as citizens, and let me I'm getting a lot of criticisms on the WhatsApp here, but it's us. It's left to us as citizens, as Vincentians, to shape St. Vincent and the Grenadines by making demands, because when it comes down to it, it's 107,000 of us, and there are about 20 persons who are supposed to be responsible. But if they're not being responsible, it's our job to make whatever responsibilities that they might be shrugging.
Yes, well, we have to maintain, insist upon accountability and transparency, which we haven't had from this regime.
Okay.
But also, don't forget that the people voted. Majority of the people voted for change.
Exactly.
There's no other way that you can spin that. The majority of the people voted for change. The system has not delivered it. And with all of its obstacles, all of its inherent bias in favor of the ULP and the government, the people still expressed their willingness to embrace change. So we have to continue to work for that. And for every opportunity that we get to push for it, because that is the will of the people in the country. We can't do otherwise. And you will find me willing and working hard in that direction, and so the entire New Democratic Party team. So we have to provide leadership, but we also have to mobilize the people to say, listen, our country is going on the wrong path. You have a government in office that's a minority government. You have a government that has delivered an economy that doesn't function, 0.4% growth last year, before COVID. You have a government that has created where poverty is growing in the country. We have called for relief, tax relief, in reducing that from 16 to 13%. We have called for a reduction in interest rates for students going to study at tertiary institutions. We will continue to push for those. For the students who are on the YES program, the government now is paying them below the poverty rate, the poverty line. They are paying them less. In fact, they are paying them to stay in poverty. That is untenable. That is something that should not happen. So we will continue to push to make sure that those students get a wage that does not push them into poverty, which is what they have now.
Okay.
So these are some fundamental issues that we have to continue to deal with. And the public servants as well, they've worked so hard, they have made sacrifices, especially during this COVID time, and nothing, no relief for them, nothing, just some vague promise about sitting down to negotiate and so on. Why didn't you do that 20 years ago, or for the past 20 years?
All right.
These are things that are fundamental that we have to address, and we will continue to push them because this government does not have a majority. This government is an unstable situation, and the most favorable thing for this country, especially when you have a seat that you won by one vote, is for us to have fresh elections as soon as possible. And that is what we have on the agenda and what we will push for. And anybody who says otherwise, then they're simply not recognizing the fundamental nature of democracy, which is the majority rules.
All right. Well, to be fair to everybody, let me read the critics here too. You asked Dr. Friday to come in the program. Let him talk without interruptions, please. There's probably somebody who wished that they were interviewing you instead of me. I voted. Next one says, I voted for a representative, Dr. Friday. I voted for a representative, Dr. Friday, 9-1 for the ULP. I don't quite understand what that was incomplete. But Dr. Friday, we run out of time.
Yes, I have another.
Yes, you did tell me. Is there anything that you wished that I asked you? Anything that you prepared for with coming on the program here this morning? Anything that you think I should have asked you?
What I want. People to understand. Well, first of all, I want to just thank everybody again for the support that they've given to us, and to maintain the hope and the confidence that our country, our destiny is better than our present circumstances, and we will get there.
I like that. Our destiny is better than our present circumstances. I like that.
Yes, and this is what the hope that we have to have, and to continue to work for it. And we will work for it. I will work for it. You will work for it, and we will get it, because St. Vincent and the Grenadines can do much better than we are doing now. And the situation that we are in is one that is fundamentally unstable, because you have a government that is not a majority government. And this cries out for the change to be manifest in our political system that the people voted for. The situation that we have in North Leeward, we have a one-vote majority, is one that you should never have arrived at that point without a recount. And the returning officer there did not allow that, and you have to ask yourself, well, why? What was he afraid of? And we have to act in accordance with what is in the best interest of each constituency, but the people as a whole. We are not going to accept the notion that somehow the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines rejected the NDP. The majority of the people voted for the NDP. We know of the money that was spent in specific constituencies. Not the exact amount, but we know that an obscene amount of public resources and private resources were used to influence the way in which the voters in specific constituencies voted. That is not democracy. That is a negation of democracy, of the wish and the intentions of those people who voted in accordance with the vision that was presented by our party and by anybody else who was part of the political campaign. That is how we, as a democracy, ought to function. And we will continue to fight for that vision, and we will continue to do so with increasing vigor. And you will see from us a party that intends to represent the majority of the people with all of our skills, all of our strength, and all of the resources at our disposal.
All right, well, Doc, well, thanks. Let me thank you a lot.
Thank the person who...
Let me announce. Somebody was asking me to announce the WhatsApp 497-6423. If you have, like I said, Dr. Friday has to go, but if you have, if you can drop a WhatsApp, no. Okay, I don't see one coming. Dr. Friday, let me thank you. Let me thank you for
and we'll do this again.
Coming.
You know,
yes.
Sorry, when I took the invitation, I remember I told you that but then I Or that I had something else. To do.
And tell the truth, I was anticipating you coming to the studio as opposed to coming. And so when I heard you on the phone, I thought you were apologizing for not being able to make it.
I didn't know that we were. We still do our program.
Yes.
We still do our program from remotely, and what we do, we call in, as you know, on the WhatsApp line, and so that there's a line that's free.
All right.
So perhaps that we don't do the New Times program still in the studio.
All right. Well, the next time we could make it a video call, because that's another thing I wanted to do. I wanted to stream Facebook Live, and multiple cameras to stream live the whole nine. You know, so
more,
yes.
Away, yeah. Okay,
Yes.
but thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you, sir. Take care. Perseverance and strength. You know, one of the things I like about Dr. Friday is that when he listens, he don't necessarily listen as a typical politician. He listens.